Hello and welcome. My name is Mark Elliott. I'm Chief Operating Officer of Europa Science, which is the publisher of Electro Optics. One of the privileges of this job is the opportunity to speak to people and organisations that we admire, and this is very much a case in point. I first met Claudia Jaffe at Photonics West when she was one of the first honorees of the Photonics 100, and I was struck then by her drive and her charm, while of course her intuitive skill in launches and just general respect across our field was already well recognised. So frankly, any opportunity to create a platform for her infectious charisma isn't one to be missed. So I'm very grateful she agreed to join us today. She's a very busy lady, and I'm delighted she's up for answering some of our questions. So welcome, Claudia. Thank you so much. It really is very much appreciated. If I could, I'm going to be an obvious, and I'm going to start kind of at the beginning, if I may. You famously founded what we now know as Lumencor from your garage. Where did the inspiration for that first project come from?
Pleasure to be with you. Thank you for making the opportunity. Lumencor's president is a serial entrepreneur. And since graduate school, he has been his own boss and never actually worked for anyone other than himself. He drove across country from graduation, rented a big house for himself and his dogs, and he started a company with his buddies from university and never looked back. He was working on display technologies at the time, and but he's a guy who likes to play the game, not watch. So he literally almost never watches television, and he was designing technologies to support flat panel displays, and the instruments that drive those, the lighting that drive those, are in the vernacular of the business light engines. So I said to him, why not work on biotech and ultimately healthcare, since television isn't really your thing. And some of the most critical technology that drives research, diagnostics, and treatment depends on technical lighting. And biotech companies have all too few expertise in that. Some do, but it's relatively rare. So we wanted to bring high performance technical lighting to the deserving field of healthcare, and truly elevate creative designs with biophotonics.
Got it. And then thinking about your part in that journey, I mean, you know, obviously I referenced it earlier, you know, there's a huge amount of entrepreneurial drive that everybody can see in you, as well as obviously a good base of industrial and scientific creativity. Thinking about you in particular, can you trace that trait back to childhood? Was this always where you were going to end up, do you think?
Well, I actually went into science because I didn't particularly want to go into business. But in fact, my parents and my grandparents, aunts and uncles were all business people with entrepreneurial drive. But Stephen definitely has the entrepreneurial background. He likes to tell the story of his first business dealings outside of Stanford Market in California, growing up in Portola Valley, when that was actually an outdoor market, not the big glamorous mall that it is today. And he was selling bunny rabbits at the entryway. And that was truly his first business transactions. And the drive and creativity, the saying, I think, is necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
And I think we both like things in design and good engineering, and I love art. And I think analytical chemistry, which is my background, has personally been very creative for me in terms of problem solving, tearing things down into discrete elements, substituting and tweaking those elements to solve problems. It's puzzle solving, and that can be very satisfying. And in the specific case of Lumencor, Stephen and I had a young family and a lot of technical knowledge, and business experience was mostly that of hard knocks. And we were perhaps naive enough to support each other's drive. It's a pretty American story, I think.
I guess so. And I mean, as you say, it's amazing, isn't it, where life just takes you into places where all of the things that you're interested in or have a natural aptitude for kind of come together, and it just, you can't necessarily always predict that stuff. No, thank you. That was really interesting. So thinking about the success of the company you founded, and its place in the wider photonics sector. I mean, there's an awful lot of, luck, of course, with all of, the successes that you see in any industry. But do you see the innovation spirit particularly strongly in photonics?
No, I wouldn't say it's unique to the photonics industry. I think it's more about identifying a real need, a real pain point in sales. We talk about it, identifying pain. And I don't think it's really any different in technology. If you have a solution, creative or not, to a real problem, be it chemical or biological or physical in nature, people tend to gravitate towards that. And I'm not really talking about rebranding or repackaging. We know that creates a lot of business. I'm talking about a time in biology where there's just this enormous wealth of genetic information, and tools have to come up with tools that are coming up with orders of magnitude more proteomic, immunochemical, genomic data. And irreproducibility in those fields is, frankly, very painful. It's borderline tragic, right? So we read all the time about the inability of scientists to repeat key studies. And quite frankly, it's almost inconceivable that we have begun to tolerate that as the norm. And so as unglitzy, unsexy as people like to say robustness and reproducibility and stability are as scientific topics, they also require creative, inventive solutions. And so how do we ensure, right, that speedy generation of very intricate 3D images to see the brain? Or how do we watch microorganisms in biology unfolding in real time? How do we sequence enough DNA to identify and treat disease better and ultimately prevent disease? Right? So one of the important sets of solution involves photonics, but the creative necessity, I think, really crosses all disciplines.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. There's a universal sort of truth to this across many sectors. But and then talking about the company, what do you consider to be the most significant achievement of Lumencor today? Thinking about the lifespan of what you've created over those years.
Yeah, well, I think our primary focus to date has really been about using powerful, intense light to support metrology. And I think it's fair to say, it's a generalization, but I think it's fair to say that light is a somewhat underappreciated tool. And it plays a critical role in all of the applications that we serve, not by everyone, but by many. I think it's referred to as an accessory, something that you just plug into a microscope, for example, and then you push go. But while I don't want to sound too self-serving, actually, the truth is that lighting is really arguably the most critical subsystem in all of microscopy, because it determines the lower detection limit, the sensitivity, the dynamic range, the signal to noise, contrast, and resolution. It's truly at the heart, which is where our name comes from, of the hardware we support. And so the truth is, if you own the optical train, you're really driving the analysis, right? If you can steer the ray bundle, focus the spot size, govern the intensity, provide the power, proliferate or limit the spectral breadth as needed, then you literally control the performance of the metrology tool that you're serving, right? So getting our heads and our arms around that lighting truly defines, promotes best-in-class performance. Yeah. So not maybe so sexy as some other topics, but it's ultimately, important in ensuring performance, quality of performance.
And as you say, probably because we're so used to light, in almost everything we do. It kind of is often taken for granted, right? It's just, you flick a switch, you turn on the light, you're done, and of course, even in science, that kind of thinking, I guess, kind of just probably permutates a little bit and things. So you've obviously made a success of that perspective, that kind of statement, because obviously the company has scaled so successfully. You are, obviously renowned for your quality of product. Is that the key to the success to date, do you think? People understanding your position on the importance of light and then the delivery of that light solution?
I don't know. That's somewhat of a tough sell to convince people something is important. Yeah, most significant strengths, I guess you're asking about.
I guess so. Yeah, I think so. How do you pitch what you do? In a nutshell, either in terms of what you're doing generally now or what you've done in the past that was the game-changing moment, how you scaled.
Well, Stephen, our president, he's a serial entrepreneur, and quite frankly, this is my first gig at stewardship, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of work experiences, but not as a founder, co-founder. So maybe we had some kind of unique combination of a seasoned perspective in Stephen and, hard knock school of business, and also that naivete, feeling that, I didn't really care what was an acceptable practice, and I didn't really know what it was we couldn't do, right? We also had a young family, real financial stressors, and we just didn't tolerate the idea of failure. I mean, we're very competitive individuals, very different personalities, but we just chose not to listen to all the naysayers when you have a young company. There are many, and IP concerns, manufacturing issues, financial challenges. Stephen is about the most tenacious person that you're ever going to meet. And it doesn't just, isn't in his lexicon, failure. It still isn't. And so we had a unique complementary set of technical knowledge, creativity, sure, grit, humility. I think that's really very important strength. Perhaps somewhat ironic, but it's really that we're open to innovation, new perspectives, new ideas and strategies. And I like to think we're both very good listeners. I think that's a key ingredient, and we actually train our staff to attain that skill, good listening.
Listening to the market, listening to your clients, that sort of thing. Yeah,
we go to our customers and we ask them what's ailing them. We can suggest a solution, and that kind of sets the stage for innovation. And I really think that's truly valued by our customers.
Would you say that's possibly one of the most definable differences between you and, say, your competitors? And obviously, every most successful businesses like yours have them. But is it that kind of listening ability and the reactions that you're able to deliver based on that listening?
Yeah, I actually think so. Stephen likes to talk a lot about the number of wall sockets, and I think our competitors tend to focus on that as the ultimate goal. How many of those can we fill? And I won't forget the very first time I did a investor presentation, and a big room of very seasoned investors, and the real kind of theme of their questioning of me was, why do you think you can do tailored illumination? Don't you know that manufacturing processes are really all about building one smart solution and then just building many of those? And actually, our strategy is different. We tend to tend to gravitate towards relatively difficult challenges that aren't kind of off the shelf plug and play solutions. Yeah, and I think that makes us unique.
So thinking about the backstory of everything that the company has created over that time, in many organizations, there's the game-changing product release or the thing that kind of changed the whole kind of momentum of the company. Is there one of those in your illustrious back catalog?
Yeah. I'd like to be able to say that this has been a very well-informed plan on our part, but I think it was much more serendipity than that. And, I think they say you need to be prepared for opportunity, right? That's when luck kind of hits you. And we're nothing if not opportunistic. So we started with colored light products, and then we realized that white light as an alternative to arc lamps was really very important. We came out with a series of those with different flavors of white light, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And then we turned our attention to multi-line turnkey lasers because the demand for irradiance just keeps growing. And I think that evolution is just tracking with what's happening in the field of metrology, be that research, life science, clinical, or industrial. The demand for instrumentation, like with drug discovery, hundreds of thousands or millions of compounds to identify a therapeutic, or for enhanced visualization, like with structured and spatial imaging techniques that are kind of pushing the boundaries of really seeing biological activity at video rates, or in spatial biology where there's tens or hundreds of thousands of labels that are being used to identify centers of biochemical activity. In semiconductors, right? All this 3D packaging has gotten very intricate at the wafer fab level. All of these things, spectral breadth, right? It's beyond visible, yes. Ultraviolet through IR. All of these things really depend on the power and irradiance to be advanced. And we just keep stepping up our game so that we can continue kind of to play in the next generation arena.
Okay, that's really good. Yeah, now, obviously, I'm very aware, all of us are aware about the part we play in maintaining or minimizing the damage to our environment. Your light engines are famously mercury-free. I'm wondering if I could ask how you found working with the United Nations Environment Programme. It's something we always admire in companies that make those kind of commitments to those sort of projects. How has that been?
I'm certainly a keen supporter of all things sustainable and green technology, but I think my path has definitely proven that all along the way. But I don't know that any amount of certification or award winning is going to really turn the tides on that kind of enormous responsibility that we have now. And I think we all industries, we really need to be making green products and placing them in key users' hands. It's been, somewhat disappointing, I think, that the centers of most research and university campuses, the center of kind of dirtiness and contamination lies in their laboratories. Even with all the best efforts at LEED certified buildings, if you bring this idea of cleanliness to them, they don't know that mercury contamination is at the heart of the lighting that they're employing in some of these labs. And so it's been really a privilege to work at Lumencor in the sense that we have this best-in-class performance. We offer this, relatively tremendous value in the sense that there's an initial investment, but then there's a very long-term utilization. 15 years is not unreasonable with no replaceable parts in our products. But I think that really goes to durability and sustainability. So I know, I mean, our experience has been that no one really, or few companies really, or customers really buy our products based solely on the green nature. You have to have the other aspects too going for us. So we're working towards that. Honestly, it's a daunting challenge. It's not just for our company, right? It's for our planet. So we just keep at it, little steps. They'll add up.
No quick wins, no quick wins. You hear this all the time, and we're all guilty of it. We all get on planes, we all make bad consumer choices. It's just they're the way, and that's true of every industry and every sector. So thinking about challenges in the wider sense of the word, what are the big headaches for Lumencor at the moment in terms of business development or just the marketplace generally?
Yes, certainly the business environment today is challenging. I was just at a Society for Neuroscience meeting, and we were all talking about it. Hiring and retaining talent, very difficult. Managing our business on the back of key OEM customers, equipment manufacturers who are suffering from kind of the backlash of overstocking due to supply chain limitations that they had during COVID. Those things still persist. So, we've had to manage many of those challenges. Had to grow our own inventory so as not to succumb to the supply chain problems. We developed our own in-house certification laboratory because the timelines on those, there are only 40 regulatory labs across the country, and to get a product to market, can't skip that step. So we built an on-site regulatory lab to advance that timeline. And machining, huge challenge with getting all kinds of things, both for production and for custom turns, which is very important to us for prototyping. So we put an on-site CNC, fully staffed CNC shop here at Lumencor, which all take, quite frankly, both financial resources and talent, real people. So sustaining financial health in the midst of all of that, it's a lot of balls to juggle. And unfortunately, your story is paralleled, many, many times over. It's by far not a unique issue for you. Thinking about the technology development challenges, any particular that are causing you headaches at the moment? Anything you're trying to kind of wrestle with particularly? Absolutely. I mean, our customers are getting more and more sophisticated and demanding all the time. I mean, they've always been, but they continue to push us. And today we're literally funning watts, 5, 10 watts of light down fibers that have the cross section on the order of a human hair. That's tough. And it's not just that it requires exacting design and precise engineering, but manufacturing that is very challenging so that it's robust. You can ship it across the planet and turn it on and not have to think about it. It's a very exciting proposition, but it's very technically challenging and also, quite frankly, very expensive. So, you have these pressures to proliferate technology at the same time that the technical demands are ramping up. And you got to find the right intersection of those things, I think.
And obviously you have a rich volume of patents, and I imagine that kind of process, particularly when you are such an innovative organization, is a challenge because you need those patents to protect what you've developed and invested in. Does managing that patent process get any easier? And for people trying to follow your lead in that kind of process, any kind of particular advice you could give them on how to do that? And does it get any easier with experience?
Well, I think it does change somewhat. I think you start off feeling like perhaps you have to be the only one from which those creative ideas spring.
Yeah.
And I think as your company gets more mature and better resourced, and your presence in the market gets bigger, then it's possible to acquire technology as well. And when it comes to defending that technology, take that out in kind of the public arena. I mean, we're really blessed in this country to have institutions like patent offices and trade protection services through a government whose interest really is to kind of maintain our prowess, our technical prowess. And I think it does become a little bit easier to take advantage of some of those systemic support systems. But it's a very competitive and dynamic marketplace. So I don't know if it's easier, but it does change.
Sure. And thinking about some of those products that you've launched, I'm thinking particularly about some of your high-end laser products, obviously the Ziva Celesta, for instance, and the new Volta scanner. Can you tell us why they're important? How do you present those in terms of the market and what they do for your customers?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, right, these demands for sensitivity and speed and precision, they're all growing. And so the lighting demand for power, for brightness, for switching speed, stability, so forth. So that's to me what these tools represent. Celeste has been our first full-on laser solution. And that continues to serve things like spinning disk and focal microscopy, which literally demands as much light as possible because 90% of that light is blocked, right? So you have to hit it with a very large sledgehammer in order to get any kind of sensitivity as you shove that light through these tiny pinholes of the spinning disk. So we overcome that imaging challenge with our first products, the Celesta, and then evolving from that is Ziva, as you mentioned, which is a very bright laser light engine for applications that have, quite frankly, historically been thought of as solely supported by single mode lasers. These are also very bright, and we were focused on the irradiance brightness specifications as opposed to the lasing mode. So we've engineered a product with terrific intensity and stability that actually challenges those single mode predecessors. And that stability and robustness is really critically important for ensuring reproducibility and adoption in laboratories. And they offer, they're not inexpensive tools, but they offer real value or cost savings for the users who can't afford hundreds of thousands of dollars in lighting just to drive the tools they've worked so hard to purchase, right? Just in support of the tools that they're trying to use. So that's Ziva. And then Volta. Volta's quite different in that Lumencor builds whole systems and analysis systems. It's a scanner, and it's designed to be what is become an extremely important and notoriously difficult assay, the so-called patch clamp assay. And we've elevated that to a much more robust and reproducible and fast optically transduced assay. So patch clamp is a technique that can really only be performed by relatively skilled technicians, where small sections of cellular membrane is interrogated to reveal flux, ionic flux, producing a voltage gradient. And, while it was automated, or maybe you don't know, it was automated maybe something like 20 years ago, even with automation, it's still very noisy and difficult and relatively slow when we think about, video rate imaging. It's a whole different ballpark. So in a key partnership, Lumencor built an optical analog to the patch clamp assay. And we do so with an instrument that is includes, or package that includes the hardware, software, and a very sensitive voltage sensitive die, VSD, that facilitates literally a touch and go sort of proposition with a completely analogous optical assay to this electronic patch clamp. And early adopters at large pharma, who have historically been kind of stymied in their progress, are using this for cardiotoxicity labs, safety pharmacology, neurology, and the like.
Okay.
So that's Volta, and I think it's paving a path to more creative whole system work. That's not the Me Too products, not competing with our customers who are much better at huge volumes, but doing a more targeted approach to whole systems, I think.
Got it. Okay. So you've segued very nicely. We love an exclusive here. Tell us what's next. What are you working on over the next sort of 24 months? Is there anything kind of that you can reveal about what's coming up next from Lumencor?
Well, we're trending, just as the industry is, towards all things bright, stable, and robust. And our customers and their instruments are demanding that we keep them satisfied. So we think that Volta is just one of those kinds of systems. We're setting our sights on continuing to step up that integration ladder, if you will, as opposed to just integrating sources. Now we're integrating sources and their optics and detection and so forth. So with more of the optical train to support, with better glass, more cameras, smart software, both firmware and on the analytics side, best-in-class electronics. So, taking a good instrument and plugging in high-end lighting, that's a wholly different proposition than designing the metrology hardware from the ground up. And so we're endeavoring to do the latter a bit more. And I think you're going to see some really stunning whole system tools from Lumencor in the not too distant future. Yeah.
Okay, looking forward to that. Thank you. And obviously, with your Lumencor's light engines serving semiconductor inspection, there's a lot happening around that stateside. I'm just wondering about your views on the US semiconductor market evolving in the coming years, especially, I guess, with the fairly recent announcement about the Chips and Science Act. Is there anything, any perspective on how that's going to change things for you?
Yeah, I think it's already affecting us. Our material science vertical is one of our fastest growing sectors. And we're getting all sorts of interest from our OEM customers who are doing novel high density packaging of integrated circuits. They're demanding broader spectral range for quality needs, doing very, very sensitive profilometry and quality testing tools. And they just simply have more demand in production with all the adoption of things like phones and beyond, right? Yeah. So we're seeing that in the US and abroad. And to stay current, we have to keep pace with those demands, both in the quality of the tools, because that demand is up, but also in volume. And so we're growing our facilities and our staffing to be able to do just that.
Okay, interesting. And thinking about your focus particularly on the life science apps, obviously it's a market that has a lot of legislative and approval requirements in this field. I mean, are those, does this present a unique challenge, do you think, that isn't sort of perhaps experienced in other areas? Perhaps the innovation is sometimes a bit constrained, slower perhaps. Would that be your perspective?
Yes, absolutely. I think everybody likes to lament the regulatory world, I think, in our field, but actually these tools are getting very, very powerful, and safety is really a key value of ours. And so, as I mentioned earlier, bringing on our own safety and regulatory expert and setting up an internal regulatory lab, just speaks to our priority of safety for not only for our customers, but internally for our staff. And I think a good example about how perhaps the FDA and the Canadian version of that, CEPA, have participated in this recent Clinical Modernization Act. It's authorizing the replacement of animal testing with cell testing. That's all due to the regulatory environmental change, right? And those modernization acts kind of translate into the requirement for drug testing on animals to be somewhat relaxed and move towards cells, right? Non-vertebrate species, right? For drug discovery, safety, and toxicology. And I think that's a key reason why Volta is such a timely, another key reason why Volta is such a timely product, because that regulatory environmental change is really going to drive a refined non-animal, non-vertebrate testing for all drug discovery, especially in the field of cardiac and cancer drug testing. So this Volta instrument is, it's performance oriented in that it's very high throughput, it's very fast, it allows a certain kind of robustness to an assay that's relatively overly sensitive, if you will, to technical users, but it also is well positioned in an environment in which the regulatory world is demanding more from us too.
I understand. No, then, and obviously, very much welcomed, by everybody. So, thinking about your geography, you are a West Coast sort of champion. What, could you, mindful of Photonics West coming up, in a few weeks, could you tell me a little bit about what it's like to be based on the West Coast and the relative key photonic strengths in your geography? Is it a great place to do business, and do you have a good network around you?
Yes. I wish it was just a simple answer. Yes.
It's fine. You can give the real
I think
truth.
there are subtleties. Certainly the quality of life is stunning.
Yeah.
It's what drew us here. The creativity, it's a very creative place, and people here want to hang out their proverbial shingle and have their own business, be their own consultant, which kind of points to a very creative hub for technology. And there's a good long history, deep history of photonics here. But ironically, we do relatively small amount of business. Our customers, starting from our very first customer who was abroad, but our customers are all somewhere else for the most part.
Yes.
And we're trying very hard to have a deeper presence, particularly at local universities and colleges, on medical campuses and medical labs. We have a fantastic center for semiconductor metrology that's world-renowned kind of Intel hub or home is here in Beaverton, Oregon. But funnily enough, or sadly, if you're an environmentalist, our products literally go to their metrology tool manufacturers, sometimes all the way around the world, and then come back to Beaverton 5 miles down the street to the fab labs to do their test and measurement. So it's a funny place. I mean, that's not particularly unique to Beaverton. That's the way of the world today. But I think the staff that we can attract, the people that we can attract, A+, our ability to attract local business, that has been difficult for us.
Got it. But I mean, people make businesses, right? And if you've got great people, you get a great business. So I guess that's possibly, if you've got to choose one thing that's working, that might be it.
Yeah, and the idea that we operate somewhat remotely from our customers. I mean, we have customers at all levels, so we have plenty of end users, but our big business customers, we deal with them somewhat indirectly, but we still deal with them here. And perhaps that's somewhat archaic, just as spending 9 to 5 days a week in the office doesn't really exist for most people anymore. Perhaps it's not so much the geography in the sense of where the unit is sold. As you're saying, it's where the people are making the business happen.
Yeah. Absolutely. And yeah, I'm conscious of time, and you've been very generous with that. I've got a couple of quick questions, if I may. Obviously, Photonics West is coming up, early next year. Anything you can tell us about what you're going to be doing there? Anything you're going to be releasing or talking about at the show?
Yeah, certainly high-end lasers. Our laser products, it's funny, you go to this show and there's hundreds, if not thousands, of laser manufacturers. So why bring another laser to Photonics West? But Lumencor doesn't really sell lasers, of course. We sell light engines. We coined that term in our industries. We borrowed it from display technology. We have something like 50 to 70 optical components in a box, which is literally turnkey. And so we're going to be showing our highest end lasers and looking for all kinds of creative applications, demanding applications in which to find homes.
Brilliant. I'm looking forward to coming out, stopping by your stand in a few weeks. And look, you've been incredibly candid and, as I said, incredibly generous with your time this morning. I'm going to be a little bit cheeky, if I may, and just round off with a slightly personal question, which I hope is not too much. Now, look, your business partner is your husband. You talked a lot about that at the beginning. Most couples who would like to work together would love to know the secret of success. You kind of touched on it a little bit. How would you answer that question? Can you share the secret of your success from a working and personal relationship perspective?
Yeah, again, wouldn't it be great to have the forethought to know what that is and then go out and find that partner? I don't pretend that that's what happened to us. We're just very lucky. I think my husband is the best partner I could find, and I like to think I know he thinks that I am his. I often laugh at a customer who told me a story once on just this topic, and he was saying he can't even imagine going out and buying a car with his spouse, let alone working together day in and day out. And I think Stephen is truly my champion and wants me to do what I do, which is very different than what he does. And I can say the same about him. I think each of us want that person to be the most accomplished and the best presence. And we support each other well. And 25 years in, he still makes me laugh. And so I think we're just a good team in life and in work, and we work hard at it. So we've been very lucky.
Got it. And look, companies, as I said earlier, are all about people. And, you two people clearly have created something really special, both as a relationship and a company. So thank you. Claudia, you have been incredibly generous. It's been really interesting. I know our readers, our audience will find a lot of useful nuggets, but also some very practical things. And, thank you again for your time. Thank you for actually allowing us to tell your stories. You're a great company. We find you very inspiring. So I really appreciate that. And looking forward to spending a bit more time with you when we get to San Francisco in a few weeks' time.
Thank you, Mark. It's been a pleasure.